Have you ever felt like your brain has two settings? Can't focus on anything and can't focus on anything else. Like you're sitting in a car with a world-class racing engine, but the brakes are from a 10-speed bike?
You've got all this horsepower, but no reliable way to control it. One moment, you're fighting through a mental fog, unable to start the simplest thing. The next, you're so locked into something that the world just melts away for hours.
Exactly. And for so long, the world has told people that's a character flaw. But what if it wasn't? What if it wasn't about willpower or some kind of moral failing? What if it's just how your brain is wired?
A difference that scientists can now see, measure, and validate. Today, we're putting the ADHD brain under the microscope. We're going beyond the surface-level symptoms and looking at what neuroscientists actually see when they scan the brain of someone with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder.
We'll explore the real biological differences that explain everything from hyperfocus and creativity to intense emotions and that awful feeling of rejection.
What we're about to show you isn't a theory. It's the result of quiet revolutions happening in labs and imaging centers around the world. This isn't just about understanding a label, it's about understanding a fundamental way of being.
And for many of you watching, it might just change how you see yourself or someone you love forever. Before we get into the science, let's just sit with the experience for a moment. Living with ADHD often feels like being in a state of constant contradiction. It's the sheer frustration of having a brilliant idea, but being totally unable to organize the steps to make it happen. It's being called lazy for not being able to do the dishes, even though you just spent 6 uninterrupted hours mastering a new piece of software that lit your brain on fire.
This experience is incredibly isolating because from the outside, it can look like a choice.
Right. You hear things like, why don't you just try harder? You just need more discipline. If you actually cared, you would have remembered. These are the kinds of phrases that echo in the minds of so many with ADHD. They're the little daggers of misunderstanding that chip away at self-worth.
They build a narrative of personal failure.
And that narrative is reinforced daily. It's about the lost keys, the missed appointments, the graveyard of half-finished projects that serve as monuments to good intentions. It's about zoning out in the middle of a vital conversation. Not because you don't care, but because your brain decided to pull up a random thought with the force of a tidal wave. It's that internal buzz, that feeling of being driven by a motor you can't switch off, even when you're exhausted.
And then there are the emotions. The flash of rage over a minor setback, the wave of despair from a small criticism. The sheer intensity can be overwhelming.
It makes you feel like you're overreacting or too sensitive. I know a lot of people feel that. There's even a name for it, right?
Yes. Many with ADHD experience what's known as rejection-sensitive dysphoria, an extreme emotional pain tied to the perception of being rejected or criticized by people who matter to them. This isn't a choice, it's a core part of the neurological reality. For decades, the world has tried to explain these things through the lens of character. But science is finally telling a different story.
It's not about a lack of will.
It's about the very mechanics of the brain. The frustrations you feel are the direct result of a brain that is structurally, chemically, and functionally different. So let's leave the world of judgment behind and step in to the world of neuroscience. This is where the story pivots. Thanks to technologies like functional MRI, fMRI, and PET scans, scientists aren't guessing about ADHD anymore. They're observing it. They can watch the brain in real time as it tries to focus, make a choice, or process an emotion.
And they're not just seeing small quirks, are they?
The findings aren't subtle, they are a series of consistent, measurable differences that form the biological basis of ADHD.
If any of this is starting to click for you, if a light bulb is going on right now, take a second to hit that subscribe button and check out some of the links in the description to help the channel out. We dive deep into these topics in our other videos, exploring not just the science, but the real-world strategies that actually help. Sharing this video might give someone else the aha moment they've been waiting for. All right, let's get back to it.
Let's start with the physical structure. Imaging studies have revealed that several key areas of the brain can be smaller or mature more slowly in people with ADHD. The most critical of these is the prefrontal cortex.
The PFC, I've heard it called the CEO of the brain.
That's a perfect analogy. It's right behind your forehead and is in charge of your executive functions: planning, organizing, controlling your attention, managing your impulses, and making complex decisions. In many people with ADHD, the PFC shows a developmental delay. It can mature years later than in neurotypical brains and may have a smaller volume.
So that's not an excuse, it's an explanation. It's like having a CEO who is brilliant and full of ideas but struggles to handle the day-to-day operations. That explains why you can know exactly what you need to do, but find it almost impossible to actually start.
Precisely, and it's not just the PFC. Scientists have also noted differences in other regions. The basal ganglia, which help regulate habits and impulse control, can be smaller. The cerebellum, now known to be vital for cognitive timing, can also show structural differences. Massive, recent studies confirm that ADHD symptoms are tied to atypical interactions between this frontal cortex and these deeper information processing centers. The very communication highways in the brain are paved differently.
Okay, so the actual structure, the architecture of the brain, is different. What about the chemistry that runs through it?
The brain runs on chemical messengers called neurotransmitters. For ADHD, two of them are absolutely critical: dopamine and norepinephrine. Dopamine is often called the pleasure molecule, but it's more accurately the motivation molecule. It's what lets your brain recognize a potential reward and gives you the drive to go after it.
It's the chemical that says, hey, pay attention to this, it's important.
Exactly. Research consistently shows the dopamine system in an ADHD brain is dysregulated. There might be lower baseline levels of dopamine, or the receptors that catch dopamine signals might be less effective.
That explains so much. If your brain's reward system isn't giving you that chemical pat on the back for doing routine or boring tasks, you'll naturally struggle to find the motivation for them. That isn't laziness, it's a chemical deficit. It's why people with ADHD are often drawn to high stimulation activities. They're subconsciously hunting for anything that will give their brain the dopamine it's craving.
That is the exact mechanism. It's also why the stress of a looming deadline can create the stimulation needed for the brain to function. Then there's norepinephrine. It's closely related to dopamine and acts as the brain's focus and alertness chemical. It helps manage your stress response and sharpens your attention. In the ADHD brain, norepinephrine systems are also often dysregulated, leading to a state of low baseline alertness.
So, let's go back to that analogy from the beginning. The ADHD brain is like a race car with bicycle brakes.
The engine, your creativity, passion, and intelligence, is incredibly powerful. But the braking and steering system, the executive functions run by the prefrontal cortex and fueled by dopamine and norepinephrine, is underpowered for the job. It's not a broken car, it's a car with mismatched parts that needs a different kind of driver. Now, this might be the single most important discovery for understanding the daily experience of ADHD. It's all about something called the default mode network, or the DMN. Your brain has these large-scale networks, and for this conversation, the two most important are the task positive network, TPN, and the default mode network, DMN.
Okay, let me guess. The task positive network is for when you're on task?
Exactly. The TPN turns on when you need to focus on a specific goal-oriented task. Reading, solving a problem, listening intently. It's your get-it-done network. The default mode network is its opposite. It kicks in when your mind is at rest. It's your brain's screensaver, in charge of mind-wandering, daydreaming, and self-reflection.
So, in a neurotypical brain, these two are like a seesaw. When one is up, the other is down.
Correct. When the TPN turns on to focus, The DMN is supposed to power down. But in the ADHD brain, that seesaw is broken. Functional MRI studies show that in people with ADHD, the default mode network doesn't shut up when it's supposed to. It stays stubbornly active, even when the TPN is trying to get a job done.
Wow, that is the biological reason for that constant magnetic pull into distraction. You're trying to write an email, but your DMN is loudly suggesting you think about what to have for dinner, replay an awkward thing you said 5 years ago, or invent a new type of spatula. It's a literal battle of brain networks.
It is a battle for control. This DMN interference explains so many classic ADHD moments. It's why you can make careless mistakes on tasks you know how to do. In fact, researchers can actually predict when someone with ADH is about to make an error on a task just by seeing the DMN light up on a brain scan.
That's incredible. It's why you lose your train of thought mid-sentence, or why you have to read the same page of a book 5 times. Your brain is literally being pulled in 2 different directions at once. So what does all this mean? It means we have to completely change the way we talk about ADHD.
Fundamentally, it's not a disorder of the attention. It's a disorder of attention regulation. The attention is there, often in abundance. It just doesn't always listen to commands. It's not a behavioral problem. It's a neurodevelopmental condition rooted in the brain's very structure and chemistry.
Let's connect the dots. That inability to start a boring task?
That's not laziness. It's a dopamine-deficient reward system, failing to give you the chemical motivation to start.
That tendency to interrupt people or make impulsive decisions?
That's not rudeness. That's a later maturing prefrontal cortex struggling to hit the brakes in time.
And those intense emotional reactions, especially to perceived rejection?
That's not being dramatic. That's a very real result of altered connections between your emotional centers and your brain's regulatory CEO, the prefrontal cortex.
And that constant internal tug-of-war between focus and distraction?
That is the scientifically proven reality of a default mode network that won't power down when you need it to.
This scientific view is more than just interesting, it's liberating. It moves the conversation from shame to science, from blame to biology. It validates the struggles that millions have been told were just their own personal failings.
But it also does something else. It helps explain the so-called superpowers of ADHD. The reason you can hyperfocus on something you're passionate about is the same reason you can't focus on something you're not. When a task is new, interesting, or urgent, it floods the ADHD brain with the dopamine it needs, creating an intense, locked-in focus.
And the creativity? That out-of-the-box thinking? Is that related to the DMN being always on?
It could be a direct benefit. While others are busy suppressing their mind-wandering network to focus, the ADHD brain is constantly making new connections in the background, leading to innovative ideas and creative solutions. It's a brain built for exploration, not just for following a plan.
For too long, the story of ADHD has been about deficit and disorder. But as we look inside the brain, a new picture emerges. It's a story of difference, not defect. The ADHD brain isn't broken, it just runs on a different operating system.
It's wired for interest-driven attention, not importance-driven attention. It has a unique chemical and structural blueprint that brings a profound set of challenges, but also a unique set of strengths.
Understanding this science is the first step toward compassion for others and, just as importantly, for ourselves. It empowers us to move past frustration and find strategies that actually work. It helps us see that managing ADHD isn't about fixing a broken brain, but about learning to drive a high-performance, uniquely wired one.
It just needs a different manual and a different kind of driver's ed. The science proves that the struggle is real and rooted in biology, but it also offers a more hopeful, more accurate way to see yourself or the people you love with ADHD, not as lazy or broken, but as the owners of a brain that is powerful, creative, and wired for a different kind of world.
Thank you for joining us on this journey under the microscope. If you want to learn more about the practical strategies for navigating life with this brain, make sure you're subscribed. And please consider sharing this video. You never know who really needs to hear this message today. Until next time, stay well and take care of yourselves.